This is the bell work for Pre-Calculus Unit 17, Section 1. Today we're going to be talking about radian measure, and a radian is a radius, which is this length right here, and it is curved to go around the edge of the circle. And so this has the same measure as this. That's 1 radian. And that's called an arc length. And if we line those up all around the circle, then you would see that there are 6 of them, little bit over 6 of those. And if you remember, the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. And if our radius, let's just say our radius was 1, then 2 pi times 1 is just 2 pi. So there are 2 pi radians in a circle, and that is approximately 6 point, let's see, 283, I believe. Okay, and that does represent our circumference. So that's what we're going to be using. We're going to be using radian measure and quite a bit of trig. Okay, the measurement of angles in radians is found if we have an angle theta. We look at its arc length and we divide it by the radius. So the arc length is S and the radius is R. We would just be saying how many, like maybe that's an R and then how much more than that. So we write it as a fraction, S divided by R. Find theta in radians here. We're going to put S, which is 3, divided by R, which is 2. If R equals S, S over R, any number divided by itself is 1. 1 radian is a measure of a central angle whose arc has length r. And once again, we talked about the circumference of a circle. And if all the way around a circle is 360 degrees, then its arc length all the way around is 2 pi r. That's the circumference of the circle. Divided by the radius, notice that our r's will reduce and we end up with just 2 pi. So 2 pi and 360 degrees represent the same thing. They are equal. One is in degrees, one is in radians. So if all the way around the circle is 2 pi and all the way around the circle is 360, then 1 pi is equal to 180 degrees. Now the way we change from radians to degrees, we're going to multiply by 180 over pi. If we're changing degrees to radians, we multiply by pi over 180. Now, 180 and pi are equal to each other, so when we have 180 divided by pi, what we're actually doing is just multiplying by 1. And you can multiply anything by 1, so it's the multiplying by 1 changes the form but not the value. Now you have to determine whether you're multiplying by 180 over pi or pi over 180. That will be your responsibility to know. So we have radian measure now is 0 pi, and over here is 1 pi. Now halfway through that will be 1/2 pi, or pi over 2. So we have 0 pi, 1/2 pi, 2/2 pi, and then 3/2 pi, or 3 pi over 2, and then back up to 2 pi. In degrees, that's 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270, then 360. You must know those angle values. You have to be able to relate pi and 180. You have to know where 270 is, where 90 is. All of those are extremely important. Okay, if we're converting to radians, we're going to multiply 225 over 1 times pi over 180. We're going 2 radians, so we want to put a pi into the problem. That's why we multiply by pi over 180. Now on your calculator, you can put 225 divided by 180 and then do math 1, and it'll give it to you in fraction form, which is what we want. That'll be 5 pi over 4. So 330 over 1 times pi over 180. Putting into your calculator, 330 divided by 180, math 1, you're going to come up with 11 pi over 6. And then negative 60 over 1 times pi over 180, it's going to be negative pi over 3. Now converting back to degrees, when we go to degrees, we want to get rid of the pi, so we multiply by 180 over pi. Those reduce, and you just have 180 divided by 3, which is 60 degrees. Here, 180 over pi, the pi's are gone. Now you can do 4 goes into 180 45 times, and 3 times 45 is 135. You can use a calculator on it if you want to. And 180 over pi, the pi's cancel. 6 goes into 180 30 times. We multiply and get 330 degrees. Okay, sketching angles. Now, remember this is 0 pi, this is 1 pi, and then we're back at 2 pi. 5 pi over 6 is less than 1 pi, but it's greater than a half a pi. This is 1/2 pi. So 5 pi over 6 is about right there. There's our angle, 5 pi over 6. 5 pi over 4 is more than 1 pi, but less than 1/2. So we're going to go right there, halfway between it. That's our 5 pi over 4. 2 pi over 3 is less than 1 pi, but more than 1/2. It's going to be about there, 2/3 pi. And then negative pi over 4, we do a negative direction and end up at negative pi over 4. Okay, number 13. Find two angles, one in the positive direction and one in the negative direction, which are coterminal. Remember coterminal angles, when we were doing degrees, we added 360, so we did a completely, one complete revolution so that the angles had the same terminal side. Here, we don't add 360, but it's equivalent. We're adding 2 pi. And then we'll subtract 2 pi. So you have to get a common denominator, which would be fourths. So 8 pi over 4 is the same thing as 2 pi. That gives us 11 pi over 4 as a coterminal angle. And then 3 pi over 4 minus 8 pi over 4 gives us negative 5 pi over 4 as an angle in the negative direction. So 2 pi in thirds is 6 pi over 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. We add together and get 11 pi over 3. Then 5 pi over 3 minus 6 pi over 3 gives negative 1 pi over 3. In sixths, 2 pi is 12 pi over 6. That gives us 11 pi over 6. Then negative pi over 6 minus 12 pi over 6 would give negative 13 pi over 6. Okay, now on each one of these, you have to know the formulas for converting to radians or degrees. You have to know where 0 pi is, where pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi would be, and then how to find coterminal angles. Okay, this is Pre-Calculus Unit 17, Section 1.